So, second awakening story I'm going to try to relay. When we last left our hero on the first one, he was in a state of no self. In a place where he couldn't find a self to latch onto for a period of time. And I would compare it to when a crab has gotten rid of its shell and is starting to form a new one, but hasn't yet. It's sitting there unprotected in the water for a while. It was certainly nice to be free of this false sense of self, this false identity, and though false, that sense of self was a place of refuge for a while. So it was hard being without one of those, and that caused some difficulties that I explained in the last one. So, once again, just jumping into the experience without giving too much more context of the kind of work I had been doing leading up to it. I was driving home from work, and I just got this sense with seeing all of the scenery around me coming toward me. I got this sense of me being sort of jolted into it and being linked to it, somehow being combined with it. This was my first experience of having the sense of being everything, of being the whole world. And just like the last awakening, it was not merely that my reality just was this now, it was just clear to me. It was so obvious that this is how things had always been. There had never actually been a boundary between me and anything else in the world. That's a commonality between all of these awakenings, is that it just became so obvious to me, whatever it was. Wasn't that anything changed? It was just a realization that it always was this way. That I was always connected to everything in this one. And unlike the last awakening, this one just felt fantastic. It was an unquestionably great feeling to be making this discovery. Because there was a great trade-in of I'm exchanging the sense of no self for this sense of being everything. That when I really delve into and contemplate, really effectively mean the same thing. It's just kind of about what you focus on. If I don't have a hard boundary that I draw at what I am, I can be everything. And I just looked around everywhere following this awakening and for weeks that passed after. And it was almost like a superpower. It was the superhero discovers his powers and starts going around doing cool stuff with them. It was like, I look at that thing and I am one with it. I look at that thing and I am one with it. I look at anything in any given direction. I look at all people and know that we are connected. Yeah, it felt great. It felt great. And just like the last one, it was another goalpost. It was a sign that, like, yes, I am really doing this. I am in the thick of spiritual discovery. And it is fantastic. It really felt like the actual fruit of my labor. Of all the work that I had been doing for the 6+ years prior to it. It's exciting. And it's also worth noting that this period of time was when I, you could say, spiritually excelled the most, according to my teacher, who I used as a reference throughout this whole time. And I think part of that is that I had some vacation time. I had some time off work, where I had the freedom to just go around and explore this new reality that I was finding myself in. I don't think that that's a coincidence that it happened during a time when I was off of work and away from any pressing obligation. Because, having too much awakening. And you hear these stories about people who have some grand awakening, and it makes day-to-day living extremely hard for them. And there were some days of difficulty reconciling my awakenings all throughout my experiences. But certainly it made it easier knowing that I had the free space to, if I have such an existential crisis for my awakening that I'm confined to bed, that is A-okay, and I don't miss any work. I don't lose any money. Yeah, I accelerated at the quickest rate that I probably have throughout my entire life. It was during the month of late June through July last year. And for a time, I also just felt a strong sense, because of that connection, I felt a strong sense of love for just about everything. Which was another superpower that I just felt like I had for a while. I still feel all of these things. I still feel that I have all these innate abilities to see this in me. It's just not as overwhelming anymore. The awakening process from going from this level to this level, the process of it is the really mind-blowing, overwhelming part. And then it does become just how you perceive things. It becomes natural, and it doesn't make it any less beautiful, but it doesn't raise your senses in the same way. If there is any downside to this time, it's that I would call this the most exciting awakening that I've ever had. But it was also overstimulating. There were times, especially when I was walking around outside, nature really triggered that unity consciousness stronger than just about any other place that I'd be in. When I was among trees, I really, really felt the vibration. When I was around water, I really, really felt the vibration. And sometimes it would be overstimulating, to the point where I'd sometimes be like, okay, this is great, but can I turn it off and maybe then turn it back on when I want it again? So I'd compare it to, have you ever had 4 cups of coffee and then gotten some really great news? You're bouncing around the room trying to excitedly explain to somebody this life circumstance, and you're struggling to really form a coherent thought or a sentence. Stuff can still be anxiety-inducing, even if it's positive. And that was just a very, very elevated time for me. So I knew that I wouldn't want to be at that emotional level of it forever. And thankfully, because I had a teacher, I knew that there was still yet farther for me to go. This is a very common place, he said, for spiritual teachers to stop their journey. And I totally understand it. I completely understand it. I did start to feel a sense of... There was like a spiritual pompousness that I mentioned in the last one. This wasn't as spiritually pompous because there was more of an equal plane between me and all others. But there still was this kind of spiritual patting myself on the back. And again, nothing wrong with that, but it did still feel like a Joe's personal work and discovery and fruit of his labor. There was still a sense of a little Joe here that had some value metric So this wasn't the final step, even though if I had this awakening on my own without any guidance, there's a good chance that I would think that it was. But it really was wonderful, and at the point where this journey from starting working with this teacher started to feel really, really consistently good. And I really cherish that memory. Well, that's that for right now. And the weird thing is, there is still yet even more beautiful discovery to come with the next one.